For 15 years, Anthony was the friend I trusted most in this world. We built a thriving software startup together, shared every milestone, and I even introduced him to my girlfriend, Sophia. Life seemed perfect until that fateful Friday night when a mysterious email arrived in my inbox. The attachment revealed a truth so devastating it would shatter everything I believed about friendship, love, and loyalty. Before we dive deeper into how my world collapsed, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. And hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more stories about overcoming betrayal and finding strength in your darkest moments. Our friendship began in a Stanford University programming class. I remember spotting Anthony in the back row confidently answering questions that stumped everyone else. We became partners for a semester project, and that partnership turned into countless all-nighters coding together, debating algorithms over cheap pizza and energy drinks. While I was the technical genius, Anthony had the charisma and marketing instincts I lacked. His ability to translate my complex ideas into compelling pitches made us an unstoppable team. Our bond solidified during a camping trip to Yosemite after sophomore year. When a sudden storm flooded our tent, we ended up sleeping in my old Honda, laughing until sunrise about how unprepared we were. Anthony was there for me when my dad had a heart attack during junior year, driving me 6 hours to the hospital and staying for the entire week. I returned the favor when his girlfriend of 3 years cheated on him, letting him crash on my couch for a month while he put himself back together. After graduation, we went our separate ways briefly. I joined a tech firm in San Francisco while Anthony tried his hand at a marketing agency in Los Angeles. We stayed in touch with weekly phone calls, always bouncing ideas off each other. It was during one of those calls that the seed of our company was planted. I was complaining about the project management software my team used. It is clunky, unintuitive, and missing key features, I told Anthony. His response changed everything. Why not build something better ourselves? 2 weeks later, we met at a coffee shop in San Francisco Laptops, open mapping out what would become Project Pulse, our revolutionary project management platform. I spent the next 3 months building the prototype coding late into the night after my day job. Anthony crafted the business plan, researched competitors, and started networking with potential investors. The day I quit my job to focus on Project Pulse full-time was terrifying and exhilarating. Anthony followed suit a week later. We agreed on a 50-50 ownership split, though I retained the intellectual property rights to the code itself since I was the sole developer. Looking back, that decision would later save everything. Our startup journey was a roller coaster. The first 6 months were brutal, with more rejections than interest. But Anthony never lost faith in my product. When I wanted to give up after our 5th investor meeting ended in a no, he convinced me to keep going, saying, "They just do not understand what we are building yet." But they will. He was right. Our breakthrough came when a mid-size marketing agency started using our beta version and reported a 30% increase in project completion rates. Word spread quickly, and suddenly investors were calling us. 2 years in, we hit $2 million in annual revenue with a team of 20 employees and offices overlooking the San Francisco Bay. I met Sophia at a tech conference where she was representing her digital marketing firm. She approached our booth interested in Project Pulse for her team, but I was interested in much more than making a sale. With dark curls, bright green eyes, and a laugh that filled the room, she captivated me instantly. Our first date lasted 6 hours as we talked about everything from childhood memories to future dreams. For 3 years, Sophia was my rock. She understood the demands of startup life, never complaining when I worked late or when vacations were interrupted by work emergencies. I was planning to propose on our upcoming anniversary, had even purchased a vintage emerald ring that matched her eyes. Sophia became friends with Anthony naturally, since they both worked in marketing. I thought nothing of their occasional lunches to discuss industry trends or the text messages they exchanged about potential clients. I trusted Anthony completely. He had a key to my apartment, was the emergency contact on my medical forms, and knew all my passwords. I introduced him to my parents as the brother I never had and brought him to family holidays. When my cousin needed a job after college, I convinced Anthony to hire him for our marketing team. I defended Anthony when our first investor questioned his experience level, putting my reputation on the line without hesitation. In retrospect, the warning signs were there, but I was too blinded by trust to see them clearly. Anthony began holding meetings with our biggest clients without including me. When I asked about it, he claimed they were just casual check-ins or that the meetings had been scheduled when I was unavailable. Our development team mentioned that Anthony had been asking detailed questions about our codebase and architecture, unusual for someone focused on the business side. Sophia became increasingly distant, often working late and missing our regular date nights. Her phone would buzz constantly, with notifications she would quickly dismiss. When I asked if everything was okay, she would smile and say she was just stressed about a big client project. I believed her because I wanted to, because suspecting the truth was too painful to contemplate. Our employees noticed the change before I did. My assistant mentioned that Anthony had started introducing himself as the founder rather than co-founder to new clients. Our lead developer reported an unusual request from Anthony for a complete backup of our source code for investor due diligence. Even our office manager commented on the tension between us during meetings. I dismissed all these signs as misunderstandings or the natural stress of running a growing company. Everything changed with one anonymous email. It arrived at 1:27 p.m. on a Friday night as I was catching up on work. The subject line read simply, "You need to see this." My cursor hovered over the delete button, assuming it was spam, but something made me open it. Inside was a brief message: "I work at Redwood Ventures and thought you should know what your partner is planning." Attached were screenshots of emails between Anthony and Thomas Gallagher, the managing partner at one of Silicon Valley's most prestigious venture capital firms. The messages outlined a detailed plan to restructure our company, diluting my ownership to a minority position through a new funding round. Anthony had pitched himself as the visionary behind Project Pulse, describing me as a talented developer but not leadership material. He requested that the terms remain confidential until the paperwork was ready. But it was the second attachment that truly devastated me: a photo of Anthony and Sophia at an intimate dinner holding hands across a table at a restaurant I did not recognize. The date stamp showed it was taken 2 weeks earlier, on a night when Sophia told me she was having dinner with her college roommate. I sat frozen, staring at my screen until the sun came up. My first instinct was to call them both to demand explanations, but something stopped me. If Anthony had been planning this business betrayal for months, confronting him without preparation would be a mistake. Instead, I decided to investigate further before making my next move. Over the weekend, I dove into company records, emails, and financial documents. Using my administrator access, I discovered a folder in Anthony's cloud storage containing legal documents drafted to remove me from the company leadership. There were presentations to investors that significantly downplayed my contributions while emphasizing his role. Most alarming was a patent application for software remarkably similar to our core product filed under Anthony's name alone. My personal investigation into Sophia was even more painful. Her social media showed nothing suspicious, but when I checked our shared cell phone account, I found hundreds of text messages between her and Anthony dating back 6 months. I could not access the content, but the pattern was clear: many late-night exchanges, often on evenings when she claimed to be working. I found hotel charges on her credit card statement for dates when she said she was visiting her parents. The mounting evidence was impossible to ignore. By Monday morning, I had confirmed enough to know that both my business partner and girlfriend had betrayed me. I asked our office manager to schedule an emergency meeting with Anthony in our conference room. I texted Sophia asking her to meet me at the office, claiming I had a surprise for her. I wanted to confront them together to see them try to deny it face to face. They arrived within minutes of each other. Anthony looked annoyed at the unexpected meeting, while Sophia seemed confused by my unusual request. I locked the door behind them and placed my laptop on the conference table. Without saying a word, I played a slideshow of everything. I had discovered the emails, the legal documents, the patent application, the photographs, the hotel receipts. With each slide, their expressions shifted from confusion to shock to guilt. "How long were you planning to go behind my back?" I finally asked, my voice deadly calm despite the rage building inside me. Anthony recovered first. "This is not what it looks like, Jacob. The business documents are just contingency planning. Every smart company does it. And the patent, And the emails to investors where you call me a glorified employee, I countered. His expression hardened. Look, the company has outgrown you. Your technical skills are valuable, but you are not a CEO. The investors want someone with vision, with charisma. I was trying to find a way to make this transition smooth. By stealing my company and my girlfriend, my voice finally broke with emotion. Sophia started crying. I did not mean for this to happen, Jacob. It just developed. We connected in a way I never expected. While I was working 80-hour weeks building our product, while I was shopping for an engagement ring, I slammed my fist on the table, causing both of them to flinch. The framed photo of the three of us at our company launch party crashed to the floor glass, shattering a perfect metaphor for the moment. You would still have a role in the company, Anthony said coolly, just not as an equal partner. It is a smart business decision. Those words broke something inside me. I stood up slowly, gathering my laptop. You both disgust me, I said quietly. 15 years of friendship, 3 years of love, all of it meaningless. I walked out of that conference room feeling like my entire life had collapsed. The company I had built from nothing, the woman I planned to marry my best friend, everything that mattered to me had been a lie. I drove home in a daze and closed all my blinds. For 3 days, I did not leave my apartment. I ignored calls and messages from everyone, including our concerned employees. I alternated between rage and despair, between plotting revenge and wallowing in self-pity. The betrayal consumed me completely. I could not eat or sleep, replaying years of memories and searching for signs I had missed. I had never experienced pain like this before. It was physical as much as emotional, a constant ache in my chest that made it difficult to breathe. The future I had planned, the life I thought I was building, had vanished overnight. I felt hollow, as if everything that defined me had been carved out, leaving nothing but an empty shell. On the 4th day, my phone rang with a call from our company lawyer. Jacob, I need to speak with you urgently, he said when I finally answered. Anthony has called a board meeting to vote on a restructuring plan. He is claiming you abandoned the company. There are documents being circulated that require immediate attention. If you do not respond, you could lose everything legally. The lawyer's call was the final blow. This was not just betrayal, it was a calculated attack on everything I had built. I hung up without responding and threw my phone against the wall, watching it shatter just like my life had. The knock on my door came unexpectedly on day 5 of my self-imposed isolation. I ignored it at first, but the persistent visitor would not leave. When I finally opened the door, disheveled and unwashed, I found Professor Martin, my former computer science mentor from Stanford, standing there with a concerned expression. Your employees called me, he said simply. May I come in? Professor Martin had always been more than just a teacher. He had guided me through my darkest moments in college, pushing me when I needed pushing and supporting me when I needed support. Seeing him on my doorstep broke through the fog of my despair. As I made coffee for us both, he listened to my story without interruption. When I finished, he nodded thoughtfully. Jacob, you are allowing them to win twice. First, they betrayed you. Now you are betraying yourself by giving up. His words cut through my self-pity. But what can I do? He has the investors, the team, probably even my girlfriend. Professor Martin leaned forward. What do you have that he cannot take? The answer came immediately. The original code. The intellectual property rights. All our agreements had specified that while we shared company ownership, the core intellectual property remained mine. And where is this code? On my private servers. And in my head. For security, I had always maintained separate backups of our core technology on servers only I could access. Professor Martin smiled. Then, you have not lost yet. But you need to fight smart, not angry. I have a former student who is now one of the best intellectual property lawyers in Silicon Valley. Let me make a call. That conversation marked my turning point. The following morning, I showered, shaved, and met with Diana Reyes, the IP lawyer Professor Martin recommended. She reviewed all my documents and confirmed what I had hoped: the intellectual property protections we had established were rock solid. Anthony can try to recreate your software, Diana explained, but if he is using any of your original code or proprietary algorithms, we can shut him down. Plus, the fact that he filed for a competing patent while still an officer of your company constitutes clear breach of fiduciary duty. With Diana's guidance, I began planning my counterattack. First, I examined the code repositories and server logs, discovering that Anthony had indeed accessed and downloaded complete copies of our proprietary codebase just weeks earlier. I documented everything meticulously, creating a timeline of his actions. Next, I reached out to several key investors who had expressed interest in our company previously but whom Anthony had discouraged from investing. I explained the situation, honestly providing evidence of Anthony's deception. Two of them were outraged enough to agree to meet with me immediately. What Anthony is attempting is not just unethical, it is likely illegal, I told them. And it puts the entire company at risk. If you have already invested or are considering it, you should know that the intellectual property rights that make our product valuable remain with me. These conversations yielded unexpected allies. One investor had experienced a similar betrayal early in his career and vowed to help me. Another recognized that backing Anthony could lead to prolonged litigation that would destroy the company's value. They began quietly withdrawing support from Anthony's restructuring plan. With legal preparation underway, I finally returned to the office, head held high despite the whispers and stares. I went straight to my desk and began working as if nothing had changed. Anthony was visibly shocked when he spotted me quickly retreating to his office and closing the door. By that afternoon, he had been served with a cease and desist letter from my attorney, along with notice of a lawsuit for breach of contract, breach of fiduciary duty, intellectual property theft, and corporate espionage. I also filed an emergency injunction to prevent any restructuring or funding deals until the legal issues were resolved. The weeks that followed were the hardest of my professional life. Anthony launched a smear campaign telling employees and clients that I had become unstable, that I was threatening the company's future out of spite. He claimed that I had neglected my duties for months, forcing him to take control for everyone's benefit. Some believed him. Several employees resigned, unwilling to be caught in the crossfire, but others stood by me. Our lead developer, Ryan, provided a sworn statement detailing how Anthony had pressured him to transfer code access and technical documentation. Our CFO confirmed that Anthony had been exploring ways to devalue my equity for months. Most surprisingly, our office manager revealed she had overheard Anthony and Sophia discussing their relationship and plans for the company nearly a year earlier. The most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. Our former IT administrator, who had left the company 6 months earlier, contacted me after hearing about the dispute. He had documented instances where Anthony had attempted to gain unauthorized access to my personal development server. These logs provided irrefutable proof that Anthony had been planning this takeover long before his open moves. The legal battle culminated in a tense courtroom hearing. Anthony arrived with a team of expensive lawyers looking confident and polished in a custom suit. I sat beside Diana, focused and determined. As evidence was presented, Anthony's facade began to crack. His testimony contradicted documented emails and server logs. When questioned about the patent application, he became defensive and evasive. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with 20 years on the bench, saw through the deception. Her ruling was decisive. The temporary injunction would remain in place, preventing any company restructuring or new investment until a full trial. More importantly, she ordered Anthony to immediately cease all development work that might infringe on my intellectual property. This preliminary victory shifted the power dynamic dramatically. Investors began pulling out of Anthony's deals, unwilling to put money into a company embroiled in serious litigation. Clients became concerned about the future of the product they relied on. Within days, Anthony's attorney reached out to discuss settlement terms. The eventual agreement exceeded my expectations. Anthony would resign from the company and surrender all his equity in exchange for a cash payment significantly less than the actual value. He would sign a 5-year non-compete agreement and acknowledge my full ownership of all intellectual property. The company would remain mine to lead, rename, and rebuild. Sophia tried contacting me repeatedly during this period. Her texts ranged from apologies to accusations, from pleas for forgiveness to arguments that I had driven her away by focusing too much on work. I blocked her number after the third message. Whatever explanation or justification she wanted to offer, I had no interest in hearing it. Some betrayals cut too deep for second chances. With legal victory secured, I focused on rebuilding. I renamed the company Phoenix Technologies, a symbol of rising from the ashes. I brought in fresh talent, promoted loyal employees to leadership positions, and implemented a transparent management structure that would prevent future power plays. The experience had taught me valuable lessons about trust, leadership, and resilience, lessons I was determined to apply. Recovery did not happen overnight. For months after the settlement, I still woke up with that hollow feeling in my chest. I would reach for my phone to text Anthony about a business idea, or Sophia about dinner plans, only to remember they were no longer in my life. The betrayal had left wounds that needed time to heal. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in trauma and betrayal. Dr. Lawson helped me understand that my feelings of inadequacy and paranoia were normal responses to such a profound breach of trust. You did not fail at friendship or love, she reminded me often. You were betrayed by people who failed at being worthy of your trust. Those sessions gave me permission to grieve what I had lost, not just a girlfriend and business partner, but my confidence in my own judgment. Dr. Lawson guided me through exercises to separate the actual red flags I had missed from the imaginary ones my traumatized mind was creating. Slowly, I began to trust my instincts again. Physical activity became my emotional outlet. I joined a rock climbing gym and found peace in the focused challenge of ascending a difficult route. There was something therapeutic about relying completely on my own strength and judgment, with immediate consequences for any lapse in attention. On the wall, my mind could not wander to betrayals or lawsuits. It had to remain present or risk a fall. New friendships developed gradually. I was hesitant at first, scrutinizing every interaction for signs of hidden agendas, but eventually I connected with people who demonstrated consistency and integrity. These relationships were different, slower to develop, more carefully maintained, but ultimately stronger for the care invested in them. My passion for programming reignited in unexpected ways. Free from the pressure of running a company built on compromise, I could explore innovative ideas that had been simmering in the back of my mind. I spent weekends coding just for the joy of creation, reminiscent of my college days, but with years of additional expertise. This reconnection with my craft became the foundation of Phoenix Technologies' renaissance. The company's rebirth exceeded all expectations. Our new flagship product, built on the core technology I had protected but with significant improvements, received enthusiastic reviews from industry analysts. Phoenix has delivered what competitors only promise, wrote one prominent tech reviewer. A seamless project management experience that actually enhances team collaboration rather than hindering it. I established a company culture built on radical transparency and mutual respect. Every employee received equity and access to company performance data. Major decisions were made with input from team leads across departments. Our offices were redesigned to eliminate hierarchical barriers, with my desk positioned in the open workspace rather than a corner office. These changes were not just philosophical, they drove tangible improvements in innovation and employee satisfaction. Financial success followed naturally. Within 18 months, our revenue tripled. Investors who had withdrawn during the legal battle now approached us with favorable terms, impressed by our growth and stability. I selected partners, carefully prioritizing those who valued long-term sustainability over quick exits. By our third year post-settlement, Phoenix Technologies was valued at 8 times what the original company had been worth. What made this success sweetest was building it with people of integrity. My leadership team consisted of individuals who had demonstrated loyalty during our darkest days, supplemented by carefully vetted new talent. Our head of engineering was Ryan, the developer who had provided crucial testimony during the lawsuit. Our new marketing director was someone who had turned down a lucrative offer from Anthony to remain with me. These were people I could trust, not blindly but based on demonstrated character. The most unexpected encounter came 2 years after the settlement. I was representing Phoenix at a major tech conference when I spotted Anthony across the exhibition hall. He was staffing a small booth for a modest startup, looking tired and much older than when I had last seen him. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away, clearly uncomfortable with the chance meeting. Curiosity got the better of me, and I later researched his new venture. After the non-compete period expired, he had launched a small software company that was struggling to gain traction. Industry connections that had once welcomed him now kept their distance, wary of his reputation. The betrayal that was meant to elevate his career had instead defined and limited it. During a coffee break later that day, we unexpectedly ended up in the same line. The awkward silence became unbearable until Anthony finally spoke. "Your company is doing well," he said stiffly. "I see the articles about Phoenix all the time." I nodded. "We have good people." "I made a mistake," he said after another long pause. "Several, actually." It wasn't quite an apology, but his humbled demeanor spoke volumes. I had imagined this moment countless times, rehearsed cutting remarks and triumphant speeches. But standing there, I felt none of the vindication I had anticipated, only a quiet sadness for a friendship that had held so much promise before ambition poisoned it. "I hope your new venture works out," I said, finally, meaning it despite everything. The anger that had once consumed me had faded, replaced by something resembling indifference. His choices had shaped his path just as my response to those choices had shaped mine. As I walked away, I realized I had achieved something more valuable than revenge. I had become genuinely indifferent to his opinion, his success, his very existence in my story. That indifference was the true victory, the final evidence that he no longer held any power over my happiness or sense of self-worth. The greatest lesson from this painful chapter was learning to protect myself without becoming callous. I could have responded to betrayal by closing off completely, by approaching every relationship with suspicion and every opportunity with cynicism. That path would have been understandable, but would have represented another kind of loss, the loss of my capacity for trust and connection. Instead, I chose to trust more wisely rather than less frequently. I developed better judgment about character, paying attention to actions rather than words. I created personal and professional boundaries based on respect rather than fear. This balanced approach allowed me to build meaningful relationships without exposing myself to the same vulnerabilities that had nearly destroyed me. I also learned that true success comes not from vanquishing enemies but from creating something meaningful. In the darkest moments after discovering the betrayal, my focus had been on defeating Anthony, on proving him wrong. That motivation, while powerful, was ultimately hollow. Real satisfaction came from building Phoenix into a company I was proud of, regardless of how it compared to competitors or what former adversaries thought of it. Most importantly, I discovered that even the deepest wounds can become sources of strength and wisdom when we refuse to let them define us. The betrayal that could have ended my career instead became its defining moment of transformation. The pain that could have closed my heart instead taught me to value authentic connections more deeply. Sometimes the most devastating losses clear the way for rebuilding something far stronger than what existed before. The company I lead today is more innovative, more ethical, and more successful than the one I co-founded with Anthony. The friendships I now cherish are deeper and more authentic than what I once had with him. Even in my romantic life, though it took time, I eventually opened myself to possibilities more aligned with my true values. Sometimes the deepest wounds lead us to our greatest strength, but only if we choose to rise instead of letting them define us. Have you ever experienced betrayal that eventually made you stronger? Share your story in the comments below. Do not forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story of resilience and triumph. Thank you for listening, and remember, your darkest moments often precede your greatest victories.